Today we are talking about information on Smite, Next God, a game we haven't talked about in a while now. So with the patch notes show coming next Wednesday, there have actually been a ton of teasers for this new character. It's the higher amount than we've ever had before, and I think it's really cool that they're actually putting a lot more effort into this now. And there's also some new ability information along with that. Let us start with all the teasers. For this part, I want to thank Snufflebox, who has linked me various teasers that I missed out on and posted a few more on Reddit, so everything that I didn't collect here myself is from Snufflebox. So this began as Hyres posting some tweets with some cryptic signs in them, and with some weird imagery as well. The initial tweet was, "You're a fool if you think this prison can hold him," with a weirdly distorted image. You can't really see much in this image except a shadowy figure on the side and some pink swirls around it. However, we can actually find out what this image is, because this image is already in the files or in the game even. It's the same image that we see in the current Grim Omens events that kind of is the background there, and that I already showed you before in context of the last data mining. But it didn't stop there. Since then, Hyres has posted a bunch of other tweets, and they have something in common, which is these weird signs across some letters. This first tweet had them as well, but there's actually nothing more behind that as far as I'm aware. However, the tweets after that actually do have secret messages. You can find out these messages by finding all the letters that have these weird signs across them. Sometimes it's not that easy because they're kind of overlapping, but typically you're able to find a message in them. The next one was in a teaser for the Grim and Hercules skin, and the message here reads, "These dreams." Following that, there was a tweet about the Legion Hades skin, and the message behind this one is, "Help me." Hyres also posted yet another tweet that they later deleted, and this one included this image with the caption, "Abandon your gods." Now, some people think that we can actually see Cthulhu in this image. I think it's not 100% clear, but it could very well be that this is the upper body of Cthulhu and showing some wings as well, but it's very blurry at the same time, so I wouldn't 100% say that's definitely it, but we have a lot more things that we can look at here as well. Then there was a tweet saying, "Commit your hearts to his unfathomable power." And here we see I guess screaming person on the background, a distorted face of someone who looks like they're in agony. And we'll get back to this image a little bit later as well. Then there's a tweet which just read, "For all you know will perish." No hidden message here, but it's hard to make out what the image under that is. It seems to be some kind of cracked wall, some cracked foundation or anything like that. Then there is some circle or something, half circle in the corner that we'll get back to later, and there's some black hole in the middle. But it's not really something that looks like a whole picture, rather like a fraction of a picture, so we're not really seeing the whole thing here, I think. Now we're getting into the material of real nightmare fuel. The next image says, "He is coming May 27, 2020, 3 PM ET, which is the patch notes time. And we see this image with various scary faces all across us, showing the teeth. And I gotta say, it doesn't exactly look like Cthulhu to me. But the interesting thing is that I think there is a second face in the corner of the image, which resembles Cthulhu a lot more. It's very hard to make out, and the image as a whole is very distorted, but I think this might actually be Cthulhu. And then there's also this weird shape in the background that could potentially be Cthulhu as well. But at the end of the day, the image is very blurry and distorted, so nothing that we know 100% from this alone, I think. Then we have even more hidden messages. This tweet spells out, "Make them end." And the next one here spells out, "No hope." We also have another one afterwards which says, "You're too late." And yet another one saying, "Stop the madness." This one reads out, "Strife is coming, watch it unfold." And this one, "Join us now, watch the old gods fall." So let's briefly summarize the information we have up to this point. We have various pictures, again, pointing at some dark entity, and we also have a picture of some suffering person and some evil person. And along with that, we have messages about dreams, somebody needing help, feeling like he's trapped in madness, doesn't have hope, and wants these nightmares to end, essentially. So somebody who's suffering, who potentially is getting influenced somehow, whose mind is potentially getting influenced, and then another character that's saying, you're too late, and join us and watch the old gods fall. So it seems like maybe there is someone who wants to summon this dark entity, or is summoning this dark entity, and then as a consequence of that suffers themselves, or makes someone else suffer. And the dark entity, that is the next god, so very likely Cthulhu. During the SPL, however, we had even more teasers of various kinds. 2 are video clips from Reddit user Chaos Teen, I want to show you first here, so I'm just gonna let these ones roll.
Wing something out of Twig's pool. No, I think you... pick them consistently early in the draft. So I think that going with this Umoja right away with the performance that Neil had is just the way to go.
But that's not all. During the SPL, Snufflebox also found further teasers that showed up briefly and collected them. There are 3 different images. The first one we have here is some sort of summoning stone with 2 hands on it, or potentially just the sign of the new Pantheon. And another image is essentially the same thing, but this time as glowing runes. It could honestly be from the same clip. By the way, it ironically says preview in the background as well. And then the third image is actually one that we already saw earlier, which is the distorted person's face. But we see something very interesting in the background if you look very closely. There is some being standing there, one hand on their side and the other hand reaching out forward to this person. And to me this looks like this could be Cthulhu or some summoner mind controlling that person or torturing them in some way and using their hand to cast that spell. Putting this green icon together with the image that we had earlier that was weirdly distorted, with not really much to tell on there, it could be that this is in the bottom right corner. It doesn't look exactly the same, but it could be that another part of this rock looks like that, and that's some sort of summoning stone, and maybe the summoning stone was discovered by someone, intentionally or unintentionally, and then again, that person somehow activated it, summoned the being, and is maybe as a direct response tortured for even summoning them. It's also a little bit cryptic, but I think this is how it will most likely unfold, and I think these are parts of the announcement trailer for Cthulhu. But wait, there's more. Apologies if this sounds a little bit different because I'm recording this 1 day later. While I was editing for this video, there were actually multiple new teasers that give us even more information, a lot more information. We see a summoning circle once again here, this purple one. It's a little gif on the Smite Game Twitter, which says summon him. So not all too much new in there, considering we already have the other information on the summoning circle. But then we also have a familiar sentence here that we already saw a long time ago in the first data minings in combination with this summoning circle that certain gods in Smite have. Only that initially it said abyssal depth, and now it just outright says Cthulhu Relia. So this is very much confirmation for us that Cthulhu will be the next god in Smite, because I don't see any other reason for this to be mentioned specifically by name here. Along with that, there's a message. You awake, sinking. Stuck in a mire so toxic you can barely not breathe, or move. A guttural roar erupts, so loud it shakes you to the core of your soul. The nightmare rushes towards you, and before you even realize what's happening, it's over. You are broken. Your mind is lost. This basically verifies some of my suspicions from the earlier teasers as well, that basically Cthulhu is going to do some sort of mind control torment thing. But we have even more information that we didn't have before. For this one I want to thank Falcio Valmont, who told me that these files were actually in-game. Now I don't know if they were already available at the last data mining and there were just some things that were skipped over in the data mining or not. But either way, I wanted to add them here because I think some of them are relevant and give us some more details. The first one is something I'm not entirely sure about, and that is that in the context of I think his ultimate, there is something called a TG pawn depthy. Within that particular part, we find information about the ultimate, where he grows in size and how that affects enemies as well. But I'm wondering why it's called pawn specifically, because it may seem like there is actually more than one unit active during the ultimate, so you're not just playing Cthulhu and there's some other character, some pawn that is deployed somehow as well. But I'm not sure about this could just be a random naming thing. However, there's also a fair bit more information on ability 2. So, in case you don't remember, the ability 2 was a toggle with a deployable, which in itself sounded weird, and this deployable then fire in pulses. And this would also apply a debuff with some sort of AoE effect. And it was also simultaneously a channeling ability, which made the whole combination very weird, because you have a deployable, but it's also a channel, and then it also does something of its own. Now, there is some more information in these files. The first one is max pulse count 2, so apparently this ability will only pulse 2 times and then maybe do something else afterwards. It also has something called lifespan after channeling 3.0, so very likely 3 seconds. And this is marked as lifespan of the deployable after the device has finished channeling. So what it states here is that it's not actually the player that is channeling, but it's apparently the device that is channeling. And we now also know that this device can apply Torment. Torment is something that I think is tied to his passive, and we see that the ultimate can apply Torment as well, but it seems that there's more than one ability that can apply Torment. This also kind of matches the teasers that we've seen so far, that he torments his enemies somehow. And the more specific information here is that the first pulse is not the one that applies Torment, but the second pulse, because 0 would be the first pulse and the Torment's pulse index is 1, which is the second pulse. This, by the way, may also mean that there are in fact 3 pulses if the first one is counted as a 0, but we don't know that for sure. There's also a max channel distance, which says max distance the instigator can travel before this ability stops channeling, and that's 200 units. So it seems that you cannot go too far away from the deployable before this ability will no longer do anything. But then I'm also wondering, considering it only has 2 or 3 pulses, how could you get that far away that quickly anyways, unless you're backing to base or something? 200 units is not super far, but it's not that close either. There's also a little bit of information about version B of the first ability, but this one is somewhat confusing. So what we previously knew is that the ability has 3 directions, left, right, and center, and that they should apparently be fired at the same time. Through the new information that we have now, we also learned that there are supposedly parallel projectiles. I'm not sure how that would work with the different directions, so if there's multiple per direction or something. And there's also something saying used to move only center star trays forward in depth he's facing direction, and the same with left and right. So maybe you can somewhat control the direction of projectiles and say, okay, I want all 3 projectiles to go to the left or straight forward or to the right, or I want them to be split. We're lacking further specifics here, but it's definitely interesting to see a little bit more details about the mechanics this way. If you want to learn more about the Cthulhu Depthy data mining, there is also more information in the last data mining video that I made. There's a lot of detail about all the abilities that you can check out. But again, keep in mind all of this is data mine stuff. And that's it for today. Thank you guys very much for watching. I hope this was interesting, insightful, and you have more information about Cthulhu, and hopefully we'll see the updates about his kit in the next days with a closer look. And if that comes out, I'm of course going to make a video about it, so feel free to click the sub button and maybe the bell if you haven't yet, so that you'll stay updated for that. Other than that, see you for the next one soon. DukeSloth, out.